What prompted your move to the CME?
I just got to the end of a point at ICE. I was looking for something different to do. It was just looking for my next step. And this job at CME came up, and I'll have to be honest, we didn't really know what CME was at that time. We all knew who Nymex was, Comex was, and CBOT, but the CME group, especially in the UK, was this thing that you didn't really know. I knew it was a competitor of ICE. My job there was product development, but on the IT side to start with. And CME had just bought this bit of technology called Elysian Systems, and Elysian Systems is now CME Direct. So it's a CME's own trading platform. And my job was basically building the products in that platform. So if you go on and trade a product on CME Direct, it's highly likely that I built some of the data in that platform. So that's quite a nice bit of legacy. And it was very early on in the days of technology for that type of kit as well, because it had been bought by these three guys who had built it in their bedroom. They were still there. And whereas now, if you wanted to change something in a piece of code, you'd have to plan out for a few weeks and have a special weekend to do that stuff. They would just quite happily in the afternoon just turn it off, and we'd fix it and turn it back on again. So it was a very fluid, fast moving thing. We worked very long hours and built thousands of products on the platform. As we were doing that, and I happened to be in the London office rather than the headquarters in Chicago, we got more roped into a wider branch of stuff. And we were there for the development of this thing called CME Europe, which was a European exchange listed by CME Group in London, and a clearinghouse called CME Clearing Europe. And this was built to list an FX and energy market in the UK as sort of like a regulatory arbitrage, really, for anything that would happen for non-equivalence at that time. So there was a period when the CFTC and the FCA were not quite in line with each other, and there was this potential aspect that they could go in separate directions. So this was one of the projects that went alongside that. So we got to see the build of an exchange. I did that from an operational product development side, and got involved in quite a lot of interesting side subjects there, from being qualified as a cocoa grader, a cocoa bean grader, and watching them build warrants and special printers to learning about TTF gas markets and what to do when things trade negative. After all that, the CME Group brought in this thing called Lean Six Sigma, which is like an industry way of creating efficiencies or lean efficiencies, but using Six Sigma, the math, to work out how to improve processes, which is quite geeky, but I quite liked it. And I was the first person outside of Chicago to be given the chance to train in it. And it's built up of different belts. So you get a white belt, a yellow belt, green belt, and black belt. So I got up to green belt and was the first person outside of Chicago to complete a project in that, which was how I ended up getting linked in with Dubai Mercantile Exchange, was due to the fact that I was completed some efficiency projects, and I was asked to go to Dubai for a few weeks just to have a look at how the business was being run from a Lean Six Sigma point of view, and how potentially you could improve things there.
What was your position when you moved to Dubai?
So I moved there initially. The job was called business development, but really it was how do you make this place and this business more efficient after a few years of not much happening. So a lot of the time I spent working with the sales team, trying to bring together campaigns and just organizing processes that had become redundant, and updating websites and asking people why they do that and why don't you do this, and just going through different things. And it's a very common thing in Six Sigma. You say, why'd you do that? And you say, well, I've always done it. Yeah, but why are you doing it? Oh, because they told me to. And then you say, well, let's have a look at that then. And you have a look, and then you realize that, okay, we could probably do this in 10 minutes rather than 2 days. And that's how you save the time, because every hour is $85 we work out as an average. So $85 times 2 days is 8 hours, or 16 hours times 85. And you can say, hey, I just saved the company X number of people hours. So there was quite a lot of those little low-hanging fruits at DME at the beginning. And I did that for a year. And then I got moved to become the chief commercial officer the year later. And now I'm still doing that. And my job now is to basically manage the sales team. I also manage the market data, revenue streams, marketing and corporate communications. I was head of IT for a while, but then I left DME in Dubai after a couple of years And in the height of COVID, I moved to Singapore to look after the desk there. So we have just two of us in Singapore. DME is an oil trading exchange. We have a contract called the Oman Futures Contract. It's niche and bespoke, but it's highly physical in nature, and it's known as the most physically delivered futures contract in the world. We deliver this year, we're averaging about 26 million barrels of oil each month being delivered through the exchange. And it's like oil on boat. So it's very different to trading a boom bubble Schatz 510 curve. You're actually trading flat price oil, and every day we create a price at 4:30 Singapore time, which the governments of Dubai, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait actually use. So when you hear about Saudi selling their oil to Asia, and they say, "Oh, the Saudi price that is 50% of DME price," so that makes me quite proud to make sure that we're creating enough liquidity in that window to have a good, transparent price. And that volume in that front month where we create that is up 56% since I've joined, and physical deliveries are up another 40%. So it's a matter. My time now is mostly spent working with very high level commercial type firms. So go and sit in a shop with Japanese, Chinese, a lot of Chinese end users, refineries, state-owned companies, even down to Vitol, Totsa, Glencore, up to Shell, BP, all these types of hard physical firms, while trying to build up a presence of prop traders in there as well, just to keep that liquidity flying around. So it's a fascinating role. And this last few months, we've just been acquired by the Saudi Tadwal group. So historically, we were 50% owned by CME Group, and about 30% owned by the Omani Investment Fund and Dubai Holdings. Now 32.6% have been acquired by the Saudi Tadwal Group, which is the company that is owned by the Sovereign Fund of Saudi Arabia that manages the stock markets and the exchanges of Saudi. So my job from this year onwards, over the next 10 years in theory, is to build a commodity market for Saudi Arabia and find price points for their commodities in the region. So it's been an interesting few years, and should be even more interesting over the next few.
If you were a prop trader today, what would you be trading?
I stand by the fact of what I tell my clients, and that is there is a really good set of Middle East futures contracts available that actually has quite decent liquidity. And if you want to trade, like actually trade, and not just work on incentive plans, which a lot of people do now, you'd be surprised how many people you speak to offer them a trade, and all they want to know is, well, how much, if I do this much volume, how much are you going to pay me? But if you look at DME, so my contract, the DME Oman futures contract, there is this other thing called IFAD, which is ICE Futures Abu Dhabi. They have this thing called Merban. Then there's ICE Dubai swaps, or ICE Dubai futures. There's Brent Dubai, there's WTI, and there's Brent. So you can now trade east to west. And if you've got some knowledge on the fundamentals, so supply and demand, it's got technicals to it, it's highly correlated, and it's very, very, very subject to geopolitics. So if you can manage those different elements in a portfolio, it's really quite an interesting trade, because all these things are slightly different grades of oil that are used for different things and flow in different directions. So we call it the movement of the molecule. If you understand the dynamics and the chemistry between those grades, you understand how all these different things impact it. And it's just like this, the price differentials move between all of them, but with obviously some sense of balance to it all as well. So I would go back and get skilled at that, because that's not something that an algo can easily do. But with some smarts, it's very tradable.